Hello everyone, ciao a tutti. This is Papilla ASMR. Welcome to another ASMR cooking tutorial. Today I'm just gonna show you a super easy recipe. It's a very traditional Italian one. However, I'm going to make a vegetarian version. In the original one, there are anchovies, which are quite an important part. But I'm just going to substitute them with a shallot. If you're not vegetarian, I suggest you try some anchovies in here, because even if you're not, not a fan of anchovies on their own, in the recipe they act, together with the other ingredients. They blend together, so it's more like an ingredient rather than a predominant. I think probably that's why they're called the bacon of the sea, because they act a little bit like a base ingredient. So I just thought I'd add a shallot. Now, sorry for my voice today. I still have a bit of a cold, so that's also why the video's late. I'm gonna just show you the ingredients, and then I'm gonna tell you about the name of the recipe once I start. We're going to need some capers, and it would be best if you can get the very small one, definitely. But I can only get these ones. I don't mind because I love them, but obviously the smaller ones are better. Then you're going to need some very tasty black olives, and I said this in all the recipes where I use black olives basically, but it is very important that you get the ones that are either Kalamata olives or Gaeta olives, all those black olives that are really sharp, because that's what make the recipe. So yeah, I love to snack on the very black, like almost this sort of black rubbery ones, but those are not the ones that you need for this kind of recipe. And I'd say probably most recipes that require olives. Then you're going to need some pelati, peeled plum tomatoes. You could substitute this with fresh ones, but you don't need to. And I'm going to show you how to prep these in a moment. And then obviously garlic is really important for this recipe. And again, shallot, it is not typically used for this recipe, but I will. So as you can see, super simple ingredient. You should use some extra virgin olive oil for this one, and it is that sort of dense, flavorful oil that makes, the sauce so scrumptious and delicious. So definitely that's a very important ingredient. I should have added to these ones. So for the pasta, in this case I'm going to use some penne rigate. This recipe usually calls for spaghetti, so just use those if you prefer. If you do use medium-sized pasta like I will today, I would suggest you use one that is that has bridges in it for this kind of sauce. And that is because it just grabs the sauce better. In fact, rigata just means, with ridges. So as always, we're just gonna chop the shallots first. So, the name of the recipe. This is called pasta alla puttanesca. And the name is quite peculiar and sort of rude name. I guess the closest translation would be pasta alla Lady of the Night, I guess. It is not a literal translation though, because the literal translation is actually rude. So I'm not going to. There are various theories on why it's called like that. And I don't think they can decide the actual origin story of the recipe. So I read the most common reason for it is that it was a recipe created by the owner of a brothel for their clients. So that's why it's called like that. But there are various myths about it. And also in this cases with recipes that are so famous, everybody kind of wants to be involved in the, in the origin. So the brothel story is supposed to be in Naples, but then some stories say that it's it was either born or perfected in Rome, the recipe. So So there you go. So I have peeled 2 cloves of garlic as well. And I'm just gonna sort of wing it in terms of measurements, because I've never ever measured it. So again, I'm not sure about the quantities. And if you prefer, you could chop the capers together with the olives, but it's definitely not necessary. So you see the sort of olives I'm talking about. They're very squishy and soft. Well, if you get the pitted ones. And they're almost like purple. We call these this color Bordeaux in Italian. Well, I guess in French as well. So there you go, quite a lot of olives, quite a lot of capers. They have to be sort of the star of the recipe. And again, if you want to chop these, just go ahead, and it will just, I guess, be more uniform sauce, maybe. Now, if you're adding the anchovies, just do it at this point. You don't need to prep them or chop them or anything, because they will sort of melt in the pan with the oil. So I'm going to add these to the pan as well. With this recipe, just be quite careful with salt, because all of these ingredients, especially if you add anchovies, are quite salty. So I'm going to add this very good olive oil. See how dense it is, and this will give the sauce a yumminess that is just absolutely just amazing. You see how dense it is? There's even a little bit of just like an olive residue left. So I am going to add just a tiny bit of salt, but that is just to help the shallot not to burn. Before I turn this on though, because it makes noise, I just remember that I'm going to show you how to prep the tomatoes. To prep the tomatoes, I'm afraid I'll have to be a little bit repetitive, because I have done a similar procedure for my other tomato sauce recipe video, but it's just an easier way to prep all the tomatoes that are either fresh or plum, like this in this case. So you just take a bowl and you add your can of plum tomatoes, And then what you need to do is just with your clean hands, just go in there and squish those bad boys. So there you go. If you're not sort of afraid of pulp, this is the consistency you want. So just literally squash the tomatoes, and that's going to be enough. If you don't like pulp in this case, you can add passata, I guess, but it's not traditional and it's not very suitable for this recipe. So I'd say probably add like very little one, like probably 100 mils maybe, something like that. Otherwise it would just cover everything. It would be too smooth. I'm not sure how to describe it, but yeah. So what we're going to do now is, I have here a saucepan with some water, and I'm going to turn this on, and in the meantime I'm going to make the sauce, cook the sauce. I find that sometimes the biggest mistakes that people make with Italian food is to undercook things. And especially vegetables. And I understand, where that comes from. But for some things you just have to cook them a lot. In this case, you want the shallot to almost melt. So it is necessary to cook it. It's very rare that shallots, you need to leave like crunchy bits of shallots. I can't think of any recipe at the moment, for instance. Now the heat was too high, so I turned it down because we don't want to deep fry this. That might be a little bit too late, but hopefully it will soften with the sauce anyway. So now that the shallots are translucent, I'm going to add the sauce. I wouldn't add any sort of herb to this recipe. Some add parsley. Maybe I will at the end actually. What I could have done is just add a little bit of the stem of the parsley at the beginning, in the previous sort of phase, but yeah, I didn't think of it. But this just gives me a chance to say another mistake that I see. A lot of people cooking Italian food which is to add dry herbs, and especially oregano, to sort of everything. And oregano is not that much used in Italian cooking. It's more used, for instance, in like a tomato salad, maybe in the south, or it's not. I think it is overused when in Italian cooking by people who don't really, not very experts, who are not experts of it, which and I'm sure I make the same mistakes when I cook, for instance, Indian food, or other sort of cuisines that I'm not an expert of. Not that I'm an expert of Italian, but maybe a little bit. So now we're just going to let this cook at a lower heat. In fact, I'm going to swap the pan with the saucepan. And I'm just going to wait for the water to boil, and add the salt and the pasta, and by the time that the pasta is cooking, this would definitely be made. So the pasta is cooking now, and I always go by the number on the al dente part in the packet, which they always or very often have, which is the time of cooking. And I'm, as an Italian, I obviously prefer it al dente. Just don't overcook it, I'd say. sauce is ready now. It cooked quicker than the pasta. And as you can see, it's very creamy, and it kind of solidified itself. So just to sum up, a general tip for Italian cooking, especially pasta sauces. The biggest mistake is to, as I said before, undercook the sauce and overcook the pasta. So once you're kind of aware of that, that's basically almost all that is to it. Another big one is to not put enough salt, but in this recipe I don't think that's possible, because we have, as I said, quite a lot of ingredients that are very salty. So now I'm going to get rid of the garlic, which I could have done earlier on, and just before I put the tomato sauce, but I really love garlic, so I like a stronger flavor. I wouldn't recommend you crush it or melt it in the sauce, because I think that's too much, and it's not traditional. If that's what you tempting to achieve, if you're going for a more traditional Italian dish, I wouldn't treat the garlic that way. I would just get rid of it. So, and now we just have to wait for the pasta to be cooked, and then we'll add it to the sauce. I forgot to say that the pasta in the end was 200 grams, which seems quite right for this amount of sauce. Another thing I like to add is that, as you can see, I've used quite a lot of olive oil for this recipe, and I wouldn't necessarily use this much oil in a more traditional pasta with tomato sauce. But in this one, the tomato is not the star. It's more about the sort of the other ingredients combined with the oil and everything, if that makes sense. Hopefully you will when I'll mix the pasta in. Always use fresh cooked pasta for most sauces. As you can see, you can do it just whilst you cook the sauce. In this case, I didn't need any pasta water, because there's quite a lot of oil, so that helps a lot. It's odd how this could feel tomato similar to a tomato, like a classic tomato sauce recipe, but the smells and flavors are completely different. It's very like a tanginess in this that you don't get with the like a sweeter, more classical sauce, more classic sauce. So there you go. This is my version, or a vegetarian version, of pasta alla puttanesca. Again, if you want to add some herbs to it, I suggest some parsley. Even just at the beginning or a little bit at the end. Hope you like the video. Buon appetito e a presto.